Okay, class. Today, we're going to talk about
the flow means go.
journaling. Journaling has been my form of therapy since I was a kid. I would sit in my favorite spot in nature. I would create worlds that didn't exist in my reality, that didn't hold trauma. I would oftentimes write poems, usually cheesy poems, about the nature that I was experiencing, or maybe even some of the feelings I was having. And it is something that I have done consistently throughout my entire life. There's something really beautiful that happens when you allow yourself to write, free write, when you allow yourself to just get the thoughts out. And there's no pressure. That's the thing about journaling. It doesn't have to be pressury. Even though I have an art journal, I still don't let there be pressure. It's where I get to come be free and play. Some of my favorite art I've ever created has come out in an art journal because it's my safe space. And I think our journals could be our safe spaces, and it could be your safe space. And so I want to talk you through some journaling techniques, as well as share some of my journal, some of the scary bits, and some of the process, as well as some of the creativity. There's a lot of times within my journal you can really see that I was working through something. And it's really, really beautiful to be able to look backwards and say, wow, I have come a long way. I am so thankful to be where I am today. And it's proof that the work works. So this is one of the journals when I was in the angriest part of my caregiving. And there's a lot of notes in here where I'm encouraging myself that when you feel depleted, remind Steve you're safe and stable, and I'm a human being who deserves some space. This was during the time when Steve was not allowing me to sleep, and I was angry. And I was processing through the anger because this was during the phase when I wanted to be perfect. I wanted to be the perfect hope who never experienced anger, who was able to be love and nothing but love and all the love all the time. So I had to literally burn up before I was actually able to start to express some very valid anger. And this journal is actually kind of heartbreaking to read through, but it's also really profound because you see how many times I'm processing and how each time it gets a little more angry and it's a little more permissive in letting me actually express myself. This is a whole journal entry about how I was saying that I use complaining as a way to feel like I have power over a situation I have no power over. And it was quite a profound epiphany coming from a girl who was in the midst of the depths. And I felt really proud of her when I was reading it, fuming over how little help I have. And all I want to do is complain because I feel powerless. But the reality is complaining doesn't actually give me power. It gives me a fake power. Ooh. This one was a bit of a stream of consciousness, and you could tell, oh boy, you could tell I was working through it. And it's actually really quite beautiful because I was going on a rant about how people tell me I'm selfless for everything I'm doing for Steve. We should stop saying people should be selfless. It's like, what, should we be subservient and giving all of ourselves instead of it being okay that we nourish our souls? It says, I am a self, not selfless, self-full. My well-being matters. There's a whole other side of my life that I was not taught to sit and speak of. I was not taught to allow to be angry. I was not taught that I matter. He's sick, so I should just sit and take it. I should put my needs aside and show up every 5 minutes he needs me and never have space. I'm not selfless. I'm a multidimensional human. I had to give myself permission to be angry to heal because I was taught I'm not supposed to be angry. And this is also during a time when Steve was really heavy and wanting extra pain medicine. And there was a lot of friction between he and I about that. Part of the reason I'm going through my journal is I want to make sure I know what I needed when I was a caregiver feeling like I had nothing so that I can now be that for people. I want to make sure I am so in touch with the broken parts of me so that I can make sure that I am giving the right space for everyone who's coming to me now in the depths of the same caregiving. I want to hold space for anger like this. I want to remind people that they have a self. And I want to understand where I was in those periods so that I can really, really get there with my clients. A lot of times my journals were to help me track what was going on with Steve as well. And to also, I did a lot of tracking of my moods with my cycle, with the moon. I was trying to understand Steve's progress, but also understand myself. There's so many times where I am writing out, like, I haven't been the most polite today. Was hoping this new moon would help fuel my kindness. But I guess me responding to Steve had a different idea. And then later on in this journal, I say, I just had to really look myself in the eyes because I keep making excuses for my incongruency in which I'm saying I want to be and which I'm being. And here's what it comes down to. I'm allowed to be this person. I'm allowed to be angry. And the incongruency lies with not letting myself be a human. Since when is it normal for you to suppress your feelings so much? There's a lot of prayers. There's a lot of prayers and asking, like, please help me. Please help me find peace. Please help me find patience. Here's an entry. I went mad this summer, seriously mad. My neighbor brought me wine just to check in on me because I was screaming bloody murder style. I can't effing take this anymore. As I was screaming at Steve, boy, did I catch our life on fire. And like fire so painfully is, it transformed us in beautiful ways. But it took some time to heal from the burns. And as you come down further in this journal, there's a post from me where it says, yeah, I really like the way I showed up today. Honestly, all I had to do was allow myself to feel frustrated and say, I'm going to walk away for 2 seconds and I'll be right back to tend to your needs, babe. What a difference. This is also the time when we had the hawk visiting us, and the hawk was telling me I needed to release some resentment. I kept hearing release the resentment in meditations, and at the same time, I would have these insights. The hawk was there. And so I was realizing that holding resentment only makes everything he needs torture to me. It makes taking care of him a burden, which makes me resent him more, when really I love taking care of him. And that is my honest truth. I need to release the resentment. I mean, this whole journal is like, it starts with me and I work through the other side. And I just think that's the beauty of documenting and writing, is because you get to keep track, but you also get to see it work. There was a period when I was really feeling quite alone. I would come on here and be like, okay, God, how can I show up more for myself and Steve? I would come on and write, okay, God, how can I do this? And I would just free write. And in fact, this journal is full of those. I oftentimes also wrote myself mantras to use to help me get through. I joyfully am here for my love. I joyfully participate even when it's not my choice. Or I am love and get a chance to prove it. I am capable, so therefore I am happy to be helping my love. This was when I was really working through, how do I return back to a place of love? I'd already worked through being allowed to give myself permission to be angry, but I wanted to return back to being a light source. This journal was very, very beautiful. I got really into making everything artistic, even the pages that were really just a lot of venting and a lot of processing. And I just wanted the whole thing to be beautiful. This is when I would say gratitude saved my life. I started writing all of my gratitudes. Someone was turning when okay, no butt bleeds, lungs dumped, but actually seemed rather clear, an awesome washing machine, donations, aid at home, money to buy bandages, a generator to buy supplies, keeping power or safety, good questions on the Insta questions, good connection with community, soap and water. Apparently it was a dirty kind of day. This I also would include a pray for. And this one was about Steve's bowel movements, which I'm sure you don't want to hear about, but that was something that I tracked obsessively throughout my journals. You'll see I track his urine output. He was having output, input, things that he would be able to take, whether it was tea wise. I was doing a lot of herbal studies at this time to see what would help him. There's a lot of times where we would get labs back and I'd write the labs down and I would analyze everything that I gave him that week in terms of like extra herbs and see what it changed in his labs. And I just included it in my regular journal because it was part of my life. But at the beginning of every week, I would do this really sweet way of, I was trying to set myself some sort of routine and structure in the midst of caregiving days. And I'd always ask what worked and what didn't. I'd write down writing prompts. This one I wanted to write about burnout and the signs of it and how to heal from it because I was actually coming out of a really dark period in this journal. Like I was feeling the light again. Probably why everything's a lot brighter and more beautiful because I started to implement art in the way as a way of living. But I had a lot of writing ideas, more gratitudes. There's a gratitude every day. This is a reflection I wrote about myself. If I was a bird, I'd maybe be a hawk so I could be in my power and enjoy a place at the top. I would glide effortlessly through the sky and bring messages to humans who would be paying attention. I could also maybe be a crow with a murder, my pack, having a community to have my back. Scavenging is so natural. I always meet my needs, holding magic and reminding others to see. Maybe I'd be a wood thrush with its song so beautiful, finally singing out in the world my tune. That's better than silence. Singing songs. Maybe that would be beautiful to have my voice heard. Ooh, you can tell there's many things. I was craving a community. I was definitely craving my voice to be heard, and I wanted to be more in my power. Simple things right there show you so much about where you were. The journal was in 2018, so things were rough with Steve, but mentally I was in a much better place. I wrote, "Look at you shine, girl, you go." You are the sun filled with your own light, golden and warm, spilling out around the edges when your guard is down. This is something that I wrote that I'm not really sure what I was going to do with. A view I'm familiar with, sitting in a stiff reclining chair, staring at my husband in a floating bed, being distracted by every passerby in the glass doors, listening to the hum of a bed, the rhythm of his vent, and the occasional interruption from someone clanging on the metal hanger of the door, getting their isolation gown and mask before coming in to announce their presence, anxiously waiting for an update, a lab, a number, a culture, an answer, hands cracking from washing the scariest of germs one only encounters in a hospital, over and over, eyes ache from broken sleep, souls ache from the square box psychosis, heart ache from watching your favorite person facing yet another scary setback. No matter the hip and back pain, I'm stuck to this chair, not wanting to be more than a couple feet away. My journal was my hospital friend too. So every time something would happen, I'd have my journal on me, writing like a beautiful poem, and then I write down some medical information because somebody must have walked in. That's what my journal was full of. Oh, this says, I want to spill words onto pages like faucets spill water. I want to turn my brain on to flow with the turn of a dial. I want to drip out musings like a sink with a leak. It's quite beautiful. See, again, there's labs surrounded by updates about Steve, but also a lot of other things. So in many spaces, the journal would be musings and labs, musings and frustration, and really you can see the way in which this really held a lot of space for me. This is during a moment I was feeling particularly blessed because people showed up for in this big way after I sort of went online and sent out a massive SOS. And I said, I feel the word blessed has been so overused and misused that I've started to not actually resonate with the word. So I opened up my thesaurus and decided to find a new word that I'll use. Here's some. Adored, among the angels, consecrated, divine, sacred. Actually, reading these made me cry because it made me feel thankful, made me feel like we are connected to a divine source and that sometimes we really need to ask. This is my reminder that I need to ask more instead of sitting and stewing that I have no one. Make sure I go and tell everyone how much I really need them. You know, there's a thing that happens with caregivers where you get asking for help fatigue. You just get so tired of having to ask for help, you start to feel like a burden, and it becomes really, really hard. And so I was working through the fact that people still actually wanted to help us through this journal. This was a time whenever I was understanding Steve and I's anxiety as something that needed us to pay attention. And it was a really profound thing to me because it actually started to become very clear that a lot of times when I was anxious, it's because I needed to pay attention to something going on with Steve. And at this point, I had years of me documenting and tracking Steve's progress, detailed by detail, and a whole team around us. We had a beautiful, brilliant medical team. And every time I started to feel anxious, I would track it and then I would see, wait, that was maybe more my intuition saying something's up. This was the thing about learning to live in this space in between the traumas. Steve's progression was so intense and it was getting really scary. And there were moments where we would get like a 5-minute breather. And this is my journal saying, you have got to learn to live in the space in between, not waiting for something to happen, but actually soak in the silence. Because you have been so traumatized repeatedly. You keep waiting for the next one to happen. It is so important to not live in this fear. Stop forcing yourself to relive things. Enjoy the peace. It's the way you're going to get through. Wisdom from the inside, y'all. Knowing my process helps me trust my process because there was a whole period where Steve would have a setback and I would have a complete meltdown, but then I needed to get the meltdown out and then be able to then focus. So if we had to go to the hospital, I would cry for a solid 5 minutes, just cry, cry, cry. And then I would be like, okay, what do I got to do? And I would jump into action. And me understanding that helped me to stop judging the times where I would start to cry or panic during it and be like, okay, just let yourself feel your feelings because that's how you get to the other side of championing. What have I been talking about, y'all? Feel your feelings to heal them. Now, this journal right here has been so many different things to me. It started as random musings and it turned into a travel journal where I would write and draw based on where I was, collection of dried flowers or feathers, and you'll see everything got just a tiny bit water damaged because in Costa Rica, an ocean wave just came and but this journal has been in New Mexico, it's been in Peru, it's been in Costa Rica, it's been in Bali, and this was also my first journal I started to write creativity things in after Steve passed away, and this feels like a very special journal. This is when I was really trying to work through getting back into dating and understanding how to navigate people not liking me like I like them. You don't have any power over making others like you, but you have the power to make you like you. And that is like a beacon to those on the outside to find you. You have to be healing, happy, and whole to send the light to someone that will be a right fit in your life. You have to be ready to attract your dream. Your dreams don't work unless you do. I think it's really sweet that I started it with like a boy and then I realized I also have dreams. I am love in walking form. When I remember this, I can share this love with all around me. When I forget, I seek it from anyone who will give it. Just call yourself out, girl. So it's full of times in which I was really inspired with a lot of ideas. And then I would come home from these trips and execute them, which is a really sweet thing. We are all pieces of those we loved before. We are all bits of stories trying to fit into another story without losing any of our pieces. Moving on after loss can feel like you're leaving a piece behind. But if you're lucky, those pieces will now fit into someone else's perfectly. Ooh, I wrote that when I was starting to have my first crush after Steve. They didn't have a crush back on me, but it didn't matter. Here's to growth we will one day marvel at looking in reverse. Ooh. Ooh, girl. This is when said dude decided to make it clear he didn't like me. Don't confuse a reflection in a puddle for the sunshine. So that was just a wide array of my journals that I read to you. And I wanted you to kind of get the full scope of what journaling can be, because it can be many things. And it has been many things for me. I actually now do more of a practice where I have a lot of separate journals. I have like a brain dump journal where anything clogging my brain, I write it out. And then I end up burning those whenever I have a fire. And I have a gratitude journal where I literally just write my gratitudes. I have an entire journal where I write out decisions that I've made that I feel proud of myself for, so that whenever I'm feeling like I am struggling to know if I can make a decision, I go back and I read all the times in which I've made choices that I feel really proud of myself for. Can't recommend that one enough. Then I just have my regular daily journal where it's very much a hodgepodge of all of the things in one place, but I quite love it because it's my one I take with me everywhere. It's always on me. I'm always ready to write an idea. I'm always ready to write a quote or a poem or draw something. When I travel, I take my journal with me, especially if I'm alone, and I will journal at restaurants. There's many times in Italy I sat at restaurants journaling, and people would come up to me and actually say, "You know what? I kind of love that you're doing this." And I'm like, "Yeah." And I would rather be in a space where there's a lot of other people that I don't know by myself and journal than to always be on my phone. A lot of my travel journals is me just finding a stoop to sit on, and I just write about people passing me by, about how I feel, about the weather, and then, oh, so much inspiration comes from just flowing in that space. And that is why I have my journal on me at all times, because not only has it healed me, it is how I come up with my greatest ideas. I highly recommend, if you feel stuck, just start writing. Write about the scene. I'm in a beautiful switchyard space and I'm in a private room, but right outside of me, people can watch me doing this. And this brick is 100 years old. Write about your surroundings. Write about what you smell. Write about what you hear. Write about what you feel. Write about the seat below you, your outfit, how cute you think it is, even though everyone's looking at you for not matching. Write everything out and then see what comes. Because I promise you, once you get all the surface away, there's your genius. Okay, I want to leave you with some writing prompts. Prompt number 1. What is the last time you can remember being so into something that you lost track of times? Prompt number 2. What do you actually care really deeply about that you've never told anyone about? Prompt number 3. Okay, what is the first thing that comes to mind when I say the word dream? Prompt number 4. Do you truly believe in yourself? Truly. Do you truly believe in yourself? Prompt number 5. How am I feeling? When is the last time you actually checked in with yourself about how you're feeling and let yourself feel it? Write why you're feeling that. And maybe this might be a reminder to start honoring your feelings, honoring your process. And journaling is a beautiful way to do that. Thank you for being on this adventure with me today. A really beautiful thing that happened through journaling was my creation of my zines. As I would read through journals, I found beautiful poetry, and obviously I mixed it with my art. And it felt like a lovely way to take some of the musings that I would write in my journal and publish it out into the world. These zines are available if you're interested.